What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Big Five Pod, episode number 117, and the first episode after the conclusion of the 2024-25 college basketball season. Crazy that we're saying that, but it is true. I'm, of course, your co-host, Kyle Morello. Next to me, co-host Jake Copestick. Cope, the season is over. We are now officially in the offseason, although for some teams it's happened just about for the last month or so, 3 weeks to a month or so, but you're, well, first of all, how you doing? Have you taken a nap yet? Because we nap in April, we can sleep in May. How are you feeling?
So here's my thoughts on the year. Like last year, I was like, what am I going to do with myself? Like naturally, like you miss it. Like all I could think about was it being March on Monday, even though we had a barn burner of a championship game. Like last year, I was like, I have all this free time. What am I going to do? Like, I'm going to miss it. And not that I'm not going to miss it this year, Kyle, but I feel like this. I feel like I just went to a really nice dinner and had a really nice meal and I'm full and I can't eat anymore. Not that that's a bad thing.
Maybe the best analogy I've ever heard about this, and not in a
Like,
bad way.
not in a bad way whatsoever, but I'll put this, I'm satiated. We had a
Satiated.
great season. We went to a bunch of games. There was great, like, before the year, like, how many good storylines was there? It's like there's John Calipari now at Arkansas. There's Mark Pope now at Kentucky who put a really good team together. Pat Kelsey put a really good team together at Louisville. Like, there was new coaches that did well. Rick Pitino in year two did the expected Rick Pitino jump. Like, there was the Big Ten was new this year. The Big 12 was new this year. Like,
The ACC was new this year.
the ACC was new. You had people flying to the Bay Area to play ACC games. Like, storylines, new stuff, new coaches, new players. The tournament was really good late and really after that first round. The tournament was great. Like, I'll put it this way: if this college basketball season was a TV show, it was one that didn't end like Breaking Bad or like it ended where you said, okay, like I wasn't left on a cliff. I'm not here thinking like, how do I interpret the ending? Like I'm content with what happened. Like I'm very appreciative of getting to witness that. Like that was a great season. And it was so great, Kyle, that it doesn't want me leaving anymore. Not that I wouldn't take any because I love college basketball. It's one of my favorite things in the world. But that was a great season. Gave us everything that we could have wanted.
Yeah, Cope. It was literal cinema, and I know sometimes people use that ironically, but unironically, I mean it like took a kind of in your comparison. It was like for me one of my favorite movies. Probably my favorite movie is Good Will Hunting. I don't know if you've ever seen it, and you're not a movie guy, I know, but you should. First of all, phenomenal. It's just like the end of that. It's like wow, like it all tied together. It was satisfying. It was everything you could have hoped for. This season was incredible. And like, listen, last season, not that you'll ever be mad at a season of college basketball, but last season was like a little anticlimactic in a way. I mean, I know you had the Cinderella run with NC State, Edie Player of the Year again, UConn won again in dominant fashion. It was like, okay, like some of these things have happened already, and it wasn't necessarily there wasn't drama. This year, even though it was a chalky Final Four, obviously the second time ever, all the one seeds made the Final Four, which we'll go over in a second. There wasn't so many upsets in the early rounds. It was highly entertaining. It was probably my favorite tournament of the last, probably since 2019. I think it was my favorite tournament. That tournament was just as insane, I think. This one was up there too. So I'm thrilled. I'm satisfied. Let's talk about it a little bit, Cope. But we're going to kick off the show here. Before we get to Cope's quick hitters, we didn't really talk much about the NCAA tournament on our last show. Obviously, we had Shiz Olsen Jr. on. We were talking about some other stuff with Kevin Willard getting hired, which we'll get into a little bit more later too. But we didn't get to really talk about it. So let's talk about the Final Four and the national championship, Cope. Obviously, like I mentioned, first time since 2008 and the second time ever that all four one seeds made the Final Four. Of course, one in 2008 was in San Antonio. This one was in San Antonio. So got that again. The games were phenomenal. Florida down 8 at halftime to SEC rival Auburn, number one overall seed, arguably the best team in college basketball all year until the last like 2 weeks of the season. Came back, won by 6. Walter Clayton Jr., 34 points. Reminded me literally of Steph Curry in that game, the game against Texas Tech, where he's just unconscious. And then the second game, and yes, I'm going to smile bringing this up. Cope, you may not be happy about it, although you had Houston in your bracket, but you are a Duke fan, as we know. Duke up as many as 14 in the second half of the game against Houston. Houston goes lights out against Duke all the way back. They win by 3, 70-67. And then the championship game, obviously, we all know what happened on Monday night. Florida wins their third national championship ever. It was, I don't even want to say it was a back and forth game because Houston was in control for a large portion, the vast majority of this game. But when there's a will, there's a way. And Walter Clayton Jr. and Will Richard was phenomenal in this one. Thomas Howell was awesome in this one. Alex Condon overcame some early struggles to have a really nice game for himself in that one. And Florida's national champions. Cope, your reaction to what I think is the best Final Four of all time. Certainly the best in our lifetime.
Yeah, certainly the best in our lifetime. I like that you brought up 2019 because, like, you look at last year, and last year's Final Four was NC State, who kind of had a horseshoe up the rear end, get blown out by Purdue, and then UConn beat
Bama. It was Bama. Bama put up a fight.
And the thing is, I think UConn, I think that final score was 95-83, and UConn won that game, and Alabama literally shot very well in that game.
Yeah.
Like Bama played a good game, and still UConn beat them, and the final score isn't probably indicative of how close the game was because Bama did play very well, but you didn't have the fireworks that you did. And then of course UConn, I mean, really start to finish took care of Purdue a season ago. And then it was the same thing last year. UConn beat Miami in the Final Four. Yeah, I mean, so I shouldn't say that because we had a buzzer beater for I think only the second time ever in the Final Four. But then the championship game, San Diego State I think closed it to 7 in the second half. But I mean, UConn was up most of that game. But I think the best thing is, Kyle, not only did we have 3 incredible games, and again, not to be long-winded, your point about 2019, you had Virginia, you had Kyle Guy get fouled pretty much at the buzzer by Samir Dowdy on Auburn. You had Texas Tech and Michigan State play a close game. Texas Tech advanced to the championship. And I think that was the first time ever, or the second time ever, we had overtime in the national championship game. But this one was still still better. You had 3 incredible games, 2 incredible finishes. Not to say that the Auburn-Florida game was not good because, just the basketball was very high level.
The fact that that was the third best game of the 3, though, speaks volumes.
Yeah. And although it was chalky and it was all 1 seeds, those were, I think, unequivocally the 4 best teams all year. Put them in any order that you want. I mean, you had Florida as the 4th number 1 seed win it, but still, I mean, you're pulling hairs trying to rank these teams anyway. Auburn had probably the hardest non-conference schedule that we'll ever see as far as how many wins they racked up. That's not an indictment on Florida at all. The bottom line is those were the 4 best teams that had to get put one way or another. But you can come away saying that the best team is a champion. It's not like, oh, this 1 seed got upset or this guy was hurt. You can unequivocally say the best team won. Those were the 4 best teams in the sport on the biggest stage. Duke, the fact is they blew that lead. Now, me as a big Duke fan, Kyle, I still had Houston as my champ. I still had Houston winning that game because there's one thing that Houston had that Duke didn't, and that was a bunch of 5th years and a bunch of experience. So for Duke to blow that, it's one of the all-time memorable finishes, the way Houston was able to fight back. You just didn't know if they had enough offense in the tank to keep up with Duke. And then for Houston to be on the flip side of it, being up 12 in the second half in the national championship game. And Houston's problem was they didn't shoot the ball well enough. And for how good of defense they were playing on Florida and on Walter Clayton, they just didn't make enough shots to give them a lead. They should have had a sizable lead, holding Walter Clayton to that. His first field goal didn't come until well into the second half. But they just didn't make enough threes. They just didn't make enough shots. Walter Clayton made shots that were he made timely shots. Will Richard kept him afloat in the second half. Thomas Houck, like he did the whole tournament, like he did the whole year, made effort plays, just was the ultimate glue guy, the ultimate connector for them. Condon was good in the second half after playing very poorly in the first half, but a true team effort by Florida, and the best team all year. Houston was great. Auburn was great. Duke was great. That was the best team all year, Kyle. And all four of those teams were very good, but the hoops was high level. We had some memorable finishes. I just feel for my Houston Cougars
Yeah.
because I did have them winning. I thought this was the year early in the second half. I thought it was the year. And to see Emmanuel Sharp jump up, put the ball on the ground and realize he can't touch it and just stand there like in agony as the seconds are ticking off the clock. Like, you feel for him because that was a hell of a season that Houston had. I think they won 32 of their last 34 games since December 1st. But the tournament giveth and it taketh away. And they needed one more win. It's unfortunate it happened that way, but a heck of a championship game, a heck of a Final Four to cap off a heck of a season.
Yeah, I feel bad for Manuel Sharp. That's got to be one of the most helpless feelings on a basketball court, in sports, whatever you want to call it. And like that's unique. I don't think I've ever seen something quite like that to end a basketball game, maybe even in a basketball game. So a player like mid-air realizing that he's dribbled and that he can't pick it back up, but especially in that situation. And, I'm sure people at home were probably like, oh, like after like, oh, like why didn't he just touch it, stop the clock, make they foul? You can't think of that in that moment though. Like you don't know. You think maybe the teammate's near you, and it's hard. Like I feel so bad for him. Feel so bad for Kelvin Sampson, who was the oldest coach I think ever to coach a national championship, 69 years old, which is wild. Or he would have been the oldest coach to ever win, at least in the national championship. But man, I feel bad because they've been so good for 5 years now. They went 2021 Final Four, 2022 Elite Eight, 23 and 24 Sweet 16, and then this year national championship. So they made the second weekend 5 years in a row, and nothing to show for it with this group, especially for Juwan Roberts being a 6 year. So I feel really bad, especially, we have connections with this and Houston as well for them being in the AAC for so long and us covering them playing against Temple. Our first year of this podcast, it was when Temple upset them at the Fertitta Center. And, we saw the return game here when that was probably the last time the Liacouras Center was packed, was that game, as we talked about last week with Shiz. But yeah, it sucks for them. I feel for them. But like you said, Florida was the best team all year. And they earned this. And they went through a gauntlet. Even though, like, if Houston would have won, they would have been for sure the best gauntlet, hardest gauntlet of all time. I think Florida still is. And that just tells you how hard the SEC was, this tournament was, all the above. It was a phenomenal year of college basketball. So I'm happy we got to tune in, cope, and witness it all. Happy we got to cover it all in here. And we can get sentimentals later too, of course, but thank you all for following along with us this year. I know the Big Five season ended a few weeks ago. Well, I guess if the Crown exists also, and that happened too in the last couple of weeks, but I don't really want to talk a lot about the Crown. But just thank you guys for, tuning in this year and continuing to tune into our work and our pod and tweets and everything like that. We really, really appreciate it. I think this year's been the best year that we've had for sure. Cope was at 46 games this year. I think I was somewhere in the high teens, low 20s, something like that. I didn't keep quite track myself, but it was a phenomenal year, and I think we took a lot of strides, and we're going to keep doing that. So make sure you keep tuning in. And Cope, I'll let you say a word after this too about that before we get into the meat of the episode. But just thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure as always.
Yeah, 100%. The fact that anybody listens to me run my mouth about college hoops means the world to me. So thank you for supporting us on Twitter, on here, anything we do. Honestly, just supporting the Big Five. It's kind of sucks when you walk into a gym and it might be a Wednesday night, kind of late in the season in February, and sometimes it gets empty. So just the fact that people are interacting with us and are interested in the Big Five, like that's that means the world to us. But Kyle, I'm going to kick it back to you before I get started here because this isn't even going to be quick hitters like three-man weave running up and down the court. This is going to be like gym class where you got to run like the 400 or run a couple times around a track because we got a shitload to go over. But I got to kick it back to you. Obviously, our bracket challenge.
Yes.
We announce every year the winner gets a $25 gift card. I'd like for you to announce the winner where the money went.
Well, the winner was me, which it was a very fortuitous bracket season for me. But not that I'm not trying to gloat at all. But yes, the winner was me for this one, which I'm not taking our own prize. Can't do that. So we wanted to give it to our second place person, who was our friend Cope, Tommy Godin, of course, who covers Villanova and has been on the pod a few times and is a friend of ours. So shout out Tommy Godin for finishing second, but winning this prize. I texted Tommy on Tuesday, obviously, that he would be getting the prize and the gift card and asked him which gift card he wanted. And being the incredible person that he is, as we've gotten to know over the last 2 or 3 years, he said, Kyle, I don't want a gift card. I would rather donate my winnings, the $25 to the Philadelphia Youth Basketball. So he did that. I did that for him, and well, we did that for him, Cope. But Tommy's the man. Tommy, that was incredible gesture. So thank you so much for doing that. And not to toot my own horn, of course, either, but I was inspired by him, and I wanted to match him because I actually ended up winning his bracket pool. So we both collectively donated to Philadelphia Youth Basketball. So shout out to Tommy Godin for that. He's the man. Just an incredible person, along with an incredible writer and podcaster and journalist in his own right. So Tommy, thank you. And thank you all for participating this year. It was a blast. No, I'm not just saying that because my bracket did well, but it was a blast. It is every year. Love setting it up. We love running it. So until next year, we'll do it again.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Both of you stand up gentlemen. So
listen, I got to give the absolute vast majority of the credit to Tommy for that because he's just the man. He is one of the nicest people. And yeah, that's all. He's the best. So shout out to Tommy, Tommy Godin for that, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Good on you for doing that too. You can toot your own horn a little bit. That was really nice of you to do as well.
I was inspired. Listen, when someone does a good thing, it makes you want to do more good things. So why don't we keep doing that in this world, Cope? Why don't we keep doing good things and hopefully we can inspire others to do the same thing?
100%. And you guys did it in the name of college basketball. You did it in the name of March Madness.
That's right.
Good on you for doing that.
That's
Kyle,
right.
Before I get started on a bunch of other news, I'm going to do a college basketball crown roundup here. The reason why I'm going to do it. Yes, this is a tournament that is a money grab by Fox, and it's for people to gamble on because Villanova's first game was against Colorado, who, no disrespect to Tad Boyle, who's a very good coach, who's been at Colorado for a very long time. But this was a team that was 3-17 in the Big 12. They were last place in the Big 12, and they were under 500 for the season. Now, they did beat UConn. Not going to take that away from them. But this was an under 500 team that finished last place in the Power Conference League, and they're playing in this tournament. And then, no disrespect to DePaul, Chris Holtman, massive improvement from where they were a year ago, almost won a second game in the Big East tournament, beating Creighton, but they were the 10th of 11 teams in the Big East, and they got invited. That's besides the point. We could rant here all day. This does not count. It's a money grab. I think you get, after taxes, it comes to $3,000 or $4,000 a player. But people get to keep playing, and you get to keep scoring points. See what I did there, Kyle?
I do. Very, very nice.
Eric Dixon, in the Colorado game, he surpassed Kerry Kittles, and he is now the all-time leading scorer in the history of the Villanova men's basketball program. So I'll give a couple claps to Eric Dixon. Jeff Nyberg put an article out about how he was essentially going to break it just with a couple points at the Crown, and if there's going to be an asterisk next to it or whatever. Bottom line is this. As far as Eric Dixon's concerned, Kyle, nobody who's worn a Villanova uniform has scored more points than that guy. So congrats to him. Quite the accomplishment. Go on and on. Last iteration of the guy the Villanova way. Redshirted, stayed there, developed, felt like he was there forever. But the bottom line is he might be the last iteration of the Villanova, the Jay Wright era stay, develop, redshirt if you have to, sit, wait till you're ready, learn. Might be the last iteration of that. So congrats to him. Forever etched in the Villanova history books until he is perhaps surpassed by somebody, but we don't know if people will be able to play 5 years again. So perhaps that will be quite a bit because it was about 2 decades since, 2 decades plus that Kerry Kittle set that record. So congrats to Eric Dixon. So Villanova, they beat Colorado, they beat USC, my guy Eric Musselman. They then lost in the semifinals to UCF in overtime, and that ended their season. The ramifications of that, we'll get into that more. Kyle, some legal and administrative news I want to touch on. So the House settlement did come down on April the 7th, the day of the Final Four, the Monday of this week of this recording. And shocker, like a whole bunch of other stuff in the legal system, sure, there was a date set and there still was not official approval on anything. So I think that will come in the coming weeks, but essentially the House settlement, if you're not familiar with it, is a $1 billion lawsuit where, if approved, schools that opted into this House settlement, LaSalle did it, Temple did it, Drexel did it, Villanova did it. I think St. Joe's is still waiting, or if they haven't already, they're still waiting to do so. But you're essentially going to have up to $20.5 million annually to share with your student athletes. That goes to paying people directly. So that's kind of a salary cap, if you will, but that's for your entire athletic department. The way you divvy that up is kind of up to you, but it will start to bring some structure to a spending limit, essentially, is what's going on. I think it'll get passed in the coming weeks, but of course, that April 7th day hits, nothing's final on it yet. That will likely come, I would assume, before the next season starts. Next, Chris Jenkins, Kyle, also on Final Four Monday, put out that he was going to be suing the NCAA and the Power Six conferences, if you include the old Pac-12 and the Big East as well. Article by Jeff Nyberg states that this is over NIL damages that he was not able to receive. It was filed in the Southern District of New York. Also seeks a judgment to void NCAA rules that limit payments athletes can receive for their NIL rights and services. A 127-page filing mentions that Jenkins' buzzer beater, nicknamed The Shot, everybody benefited but him. Villanova, like uptick in applications, increased merchandise sales. Look at how they've renovated Finneran Pavilion. They have the Davis Center as a practice facility. The program, the university, they benefited a lot. He has not seen that NIL money because he was painfully close to being in that era, but just wasn't. So campus obviously changed a lot. Like, again, the Finn is beautiful. They got that done. They got a practice facility. Basically, like, him being used by the NCAA and CBS and the Big East, he's seeking damages from that. So we'll see if that happens. If he is paid out, I think he should be, because we're going to see that image for the rest of time. And he should be able to take some money and benefit off that. But that was just announced on Monday. And then lastly, Kyle, not that this is like very pertinent to the Big Five. I feel like it's worth mentioning because we mentioned this when it happened to Cabrini. But Rosemont College is going to shut its doors. That neighbors Villanova University, just like Cabrini University did in its latter stages. It's going to be bought up by Villanova. Students there, this is an article by Susan Snyder of the Philadelphia Inquirer, students that will have roughly 3 years to complete their degrees before they fully merge with Villanova. And the thing about Rosemont is, and you look at a lot of D3 schools, this is the case for a good chunk of them, a lot of their students are student athletes. So roughly 2/3 of the population there are student athletes. The school will stop college athletics after the spring of 2026. Next year, Villanova is going to provide financial support to Rosemont for the time being, and they will keep the Rosemont name. It will be called Villanova University, the Rosemont campus. So just feel like it's important to mention that stuff, because I think with the way things are going with athletics, the still kind of windfall, I guess, from COVID, unfortunately, Kyle, we might see more of this in our area, because there is quite a few schools like a Cabrini or Rosemont in this area that are vulnerable to this. So, yeah. Kyle, moving on to some scheduling news. Nothing in stone as far as dates go for this, but the Players Era Festival that Oregon won this year, they got a big NIL payment for winning the tournament. Essentially a tournament for money, what this is. Or it's the college basketball crown. It's in Vegas, but it matters because it's actually done.
I would say it actually is worth something. Yes.
And it matters. And
yes.
These teams, the requisite isn't to miss the tournament. You're trying to get your way in the tournament with this one. How about that?
Yeah.
But quite the field. 7 teams who have made the last 5 Final Fours, Kyle, are going to be in this year's field. It's expanded this year. It's going to expand next year to 32 teams and will be the largest tournament outside of the NCAA tournament. It's going to be the NIT basically midseason. It might have to be played over multiple weeks.
It's cool. Like it is
Oh,
cool. Well, and we can talk more
yeah.
about it, but it's a cool thing that they're doing.
Yeah, it's a cool concept. So more details when they come. But Auburn, Alabama, San Diego State, Baylor, Gonzaga, Houston, Kansas, Michigan, UNLV, who's only going to have to go a couple blocks to be
I think I
there.
saw
But
Maryland today too. Is in that now?
yes, Maryland's
Yeah.
going to opt in. Oregon will be in again. Rutgers, Notre Dame, Iowa State. A lot of the same schools that were in it last year also going to do it this year. They're adding a bunch more teams. And obviously, St. Joe's going to be in it. So I'm bringing it up. And plenty of opportunities for them to score quad one wins, play on TNT, play on TV, on a national stage. So more details to come, but I thought this was worth including because this is a rapidly moving situation. More teams are being added. If I believe St. Joe's also going to be in it next year as well, which there'll be even more to talk about then, but felt like that was at least worth mentioning. One more thing on scheduling, Kyle. Saw this, I believe it was yesterday. Penn's going to play Rutgers next season. We have our first non-conference nugget for next year, for the coming season. So the game will be played at Jersey Mike's Arena on December 20th, according to @WhiskeyBusiness on Twitter. Whiskey is a play on words with Wisconsin, not the drink whiskey. States there'll be an $80,000 guarantee going to be paid to Penn for this game. So I always, anytime we talk non-conference, I always got to go see, well, what's their overall record against the team they're going to play? When was the last time they played? Sometimes I have to go to College Basketball Reference because I can't find that on a school website. But when you go to Penn's website, the great Mike Mahoney's got you covered. You don't have to worry about doing that. So he's got a master spreadsheet of every team they played. It could be teams in the 40s that aren't around anymore. He's got everything there. But Penn leads the all-time series 19-4 over the Scarlet Knights. Kyle, the last time they played was at Madison Square Garden. It was December 11th, 1975. It's been some time since these two teams have seen each other. That was a 95-80 Rutgers win, of course, at the Garden. So if that's the case, Kyle, would like to get up there next year. Also, Fran McCaffrey, he leaves the Big Ten. Not so much. You're going back up to the rack to go play Steve Pike on the Scarlet Knights. Kyle, we're going to move on to some coaching news now, which there's quite a bit to mention. I'll do the best that I can. We're going to put a wrap on LaSalle here because there was 2 things we didn't mention last week, which was Joe Mahalik Sr. is going to remain on the coaching staff. This is going to be his 4th season there. He's a LaSalle alum. This is his 3rd stint at the school. And I think what's cool about this is when he was at Hofstra, Colin Curtin, who's a new assistant coach on Darius Nichols' staff, he worked under Joe Mahalik. And he did so at Niagara as well. And Shane Nichols, the brother of Darius, when he was in a coach at Niagara, he worked under Joe Mahalik as well. So cool little reunion, if you will, that Joe Mahalik in, likely the final stages of his coaching career is going to see 2 guys that have worked under him be on the same staff again as they continue to progress in their coaching careers. And then Kyle, because we mentioned everything, and this is what Quick Hitters is designed for, to touch on everything. Justin Ray also being retained at LaSalle going into his 6th season as the director of sports performance for the LaSalle men's basketball program. We mentioned everything here.
We mentioned everything.
Even the sports staff. We got everything for you. So with that, Kyle, I want to run into a couple press conferences. We had Kevin Willard's today. We had Fran McCaffrey's on Monday. Want to just touch a little bit on the presser before I get into an official coaching hire, or one has been announced. There's a couple more that are going to come out. But if you watched Monday, which of course I do, even if I'm working from home, I kind of have it on in the background. It was really, really cool to see Fran McCaffrey is he bleeds the red and the blue, man. That meant so much to him to be up there. You can tell by how he talked, how aggressively he pursued this position, and how much it means to him. He got choked up talking about how pointed over to where he used to sit with his brother and his parents, and they'd watch Penn. They'd watch the Big Five at the Palestra. His father worked security, I think, right in front of where the Penn men's basketball locker room is, because they don't have the bowl of the stadium. They just got the ramps where you walk down. Like he worked security there, knew everybody that walked in there. Like not only does Penn and the Penn men's basketball program mean a lot to Fran McCaffery, but you can tell that the Palestra and the Cathedral of college basketball means so much to him as well. So to hear him speak about that, the Big Five, the Palestra was refreshing. I know he grew up in the heyday of the Big Five, but it still means stuff to people around here. So that was really, really cool to see. And then also he got choked up talking about him following in his coach Bob Weinhauer's footsteps. Bob Weinhauer, of course, coached Fran McCaffery when he was at Penn. Now, Fran McCaffery, when he transferred from Wake Forest, he sat out the year they made the Final Four and lost to Magic Johnson. That then set up the Magic Johnson-Larry Bird championship game. But it was just so cool and like I don't say refreshing in a bad way that it hasn't been this way, but to see Fran McCaffery like just be so appreciative of Penn and be able to go back and to give back and to be at a place where he learned so much, it meant so much to him, and then to follow the lead of his coach Bob Weinhauer was cool. It was a cool press conference to see him come back. He hasn't been able to spend a lot of time at the Palestra, the last probably 20, 30 years, being at other places, being at Iowa in the Big Ten and traveling a ton. So that was really cool to see. It was really cool to see, Kyle. So going to get into two staff hires for him now. First going to be Tristan Spurlock, who's going to follow Fran McCaffery from Iowa. He was there the last 3 years as a director of player development and assistant coach, which prior to there, he played professionally for 9 seasons overseas. So quite the basketball career for Tristan Spurlock. Moved into coaching at Iowa. His second stop in the coaching ranks will now be at the Palestra and University City with Fran McCaffery. So he not only had the professional career that he had, played a college season at Virginia, he played his last 3 at UCF, and is from D.C. as well. So I think when you look at who do you want to recruit at Penn, when you look at the D.C. area, you look at the Philly area, really good prep schools, really good high school hoops. So geographically, a fit, a younger guy, played professionally, seems like a really good fit to, and with Fran McCaffery's blessing to follow him along, seems like a really good fit. And then another one that's really interesting, Kyle, and then I'm going to kick it back over to you because I feel like I'm starting to run out of breath here. Ben Luber, the head basketball coach at the George School, which I believe is in Bucks County, I think, or Bristol or Levittown, like over that way. He's going to be an assistant coach as well. I think this is a really interesting hire because not only is it a guy who played college basketball at Penn State and was a D1 assistant at Rider and Binghamton, so regionally is certainly a fit as well, but been the head coach at the George School, a really good basketball prep school for 6 years now. It was since 2019. So a guy that's had college experience, connections, and worked directly at a prep school in the area. I think it's a really interesting but a really strategic hire by Fran McCaffery to go that route, to have a guy in the area, D1 experience, ties to the area. Like, here's the thing. We've seen 4- and 5-star recruits in the Philadelphia area that don't stay home because they can get poached by a bigger school. But I'll tell you what, Kyle, I'm sure there is a ton of talent that can play at Penn and can play in the Ivy League. And if you want people that potentially have some money, are really good academically in these prep schools, really good people academically that could get into Penn, I think it's a really, really good hire for a guy like Ben Luber. Coaching experience, high school, college, this area, and specific to the challenges that face Penn with no scholarships and the rigorous academics and admission standards, a very strategic hire. Really interested to see how this one works out. So with that, Kyle, Kevin Willard was introduced today. I will throw it back to you. I'm kind of like waving my hand now, asking for
a sub?
to come out. Yeah, I need a sub for sure, right before a media timeout, so I get a nice extended break, a little longer than usual. So
Todd Golden did that a couple times in the championship game.
Strategic, man. Give you guys a couple of seconds.
I've seen Adam Fisher do it. I've seen everybody do it. I'm also going to take a sip of water too. Cope. So the day of this recording, Wednesday night, was Kevin Willard's press conference with Villanova, and we'll get into some things. Also, he's starting to release a little bit of his coaching staff, not all the way yet, but we'll go over one name. He started off the press conference by saying, "I'm going to be brief because I've learned over the last 2 weeks it's better to say less or more," which is pretty funny. I'll give him a lot of credit for that. But he also, and Cope, this is very interesting, probably the other main highlight of this press conference, because he did have a Zoom press conference last week, I think it was, but this was his introductory. He's here physically in the Philadelphia area press conference. But he stated he wants this to be his last move. He does not want another coaching job after this, which he's not a particularly old guy. I'm actually going to look up right
He's
now.
50. He's 50.
He's 50 years old, so he's not particularly old. In the slightest. He's planning on sticking around a while, so long as he wins basketball games and does all the right things. So, as for Villanova fans and for Big Five fans, would not be mad at that, because while he doesn't have tournament success like we've talked about before, he's a good basketball coach. He's won games. He's been at schools that either have been under-resourced or he has felt have been under-resourced. Maybe it's not too much to the ability that he thinks they should be. That's not going to be Villanova. Villanova is going to be, even if there is going to end up being a salary cap, more or less, with the house settlement potentially on the horizon here. I think with Villanova having maybe some less sports than other schools, particularly football, Villanova basketball is going to be able to get a lot of that for their university. So I think it will be a happy pairing between Kevin Willard and Villanova, and we can get far more into that as we get toward the offseason. More of a staff takes shape. We get more toward the season once he fills out the roster. I think it's going to be good. So I'm excited for Kevin Willard to be at Villanova. I think a lot of Villanova fans are too, and it'll be I think a happy marriage there between those two. He did name his first assistant coach, and that would be his associate head coach, David Cox, who was his associate head coach last year. He was an assistant on his staff the previous 2 years during his tenure at Maryland. He was also previously the head coach of Rhode Island for 4 seasons after Dan Hurley got hired at UConn. Also his previous experience in the Big East, being an assistant at Georgetown from 2007 to 2010, and he also played at William & Mary from 1991 to 1995. So there's him, and also Greg Manning Jr. will follow him as well to be an assistant coach. He's been at Maryland since 2018, was a video coordinator, the director of basketball operations, was retained by Willard when he took over. Assistant coach this past season. He's also been an assistant at Siena, Loyola Maryland, and he played at Loyola Maryland from 2004 to 2008. So, and one more. Cope, they're keeping coming in here. Kevin Norris also following Willard as an assistant coach. Was an assistant coach this season under Maryland. At Maryland under Willard. Was a UCF assistant from 2016 to 2024. Was at UCF or USC before that. And was on Andy Enfield's staff at Florida Gulf Coast University for Dunk City, which, of course, we love. So it's a not surprising move from Kevin Willard to bring over a lot of his staff. But Cope, it is interesting because there has been some staff that has been on Villanova's bench for years, and one of them is staying that we love, but there are some familiar faces that will not be on Villanova's bench this year. Mike Nardi and Dwayne Anderson being the two big ones there. Obviously, they've been there for quite some time. They are part of, like you mentioned with Eric Dixon, that Villanova way. And they were retained on Kyle Neptune's staff as well, being in the Villanova way there and trying to keep that tradition. They were not retained by Kevin Willard, but one was retained, and he is a friend of the pod. He's been on the pod before. That's Ashley Howard. So there's one more person on this staff that is kind of has anything to do with Jay Wright and that administration, and also, of course, Kyle Neptune as well. But he's kind of the one person who can remind this staff, this Kevin Willard staff that's coming over from Maryland, and obviously there's more to be named later, but kind of remind them of how things have operated in the past and have that connection to the city. Obviously, when we talked to Ashley Howard this past summer, early fall, he glowed about how much he grew up in the Big Five and loved the Big Five and was happy to once again be in the Big Five, this time at a different school, obviously with the previous stop at LaSalle. He said he grew up around Temple. So he's been around, and I think it's a good decision on Kevin Willard's part to keep someone like that on the staff because, and this is true with every school, you need at least some type of Philly connection on your staff or in your administration. And this is their connection to that. Ashley Howard can recruit in the city. Obviously, he helped last year get Jake Brickus over here, though he was already in Philly, of course. But that and many more, I think it's a great decision by Kevin Willard to keep someone from the previous regime who has a lot of ties to the city in the city to help with getting people in. Cope, your thoughts on Kevin Willard's staff so far, but particularly keeping Ashley Howard and also letting go Dwayne Anderson and Mark Nardi.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see guys like Nardi and Dwayne Anderson leave. Like just Villanova lifers, man. I mean, guys that were here and played there and had success here, and like you said, grew, developed the true Villanova way for these guys. So it's sad to see them go. I know Mike Nardi put a video out, and then Dwayne Anderson he had a pretty cool picture with both of his children, and they're at the practice facility, and the scoreboard is all 22s on him, which is a number that he wore. Him saying goodbye. It's like this is pretty much all they know is Villanova. So it's unfortunate to see, but this is coaching. These guys are very fortunate, I think, in this industry to be at a school like that they went to and grew up at. They're very fortunate. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but that's usually not how it goes. I feel like in this business, usually it's, hey, everything. I mean, look at David Cox. He takes over at Rhode Island 4 years. He's going down to Maryland because he needs a new job. It's bittersweet, I guess. If you've been a Villanova fan for a long time, like these guys are mainstays on the bench. They go right from playing essentially to basically being on the bench. So it's kind of sad to see. It's sad to see just because that's the nature of it. These are Villanova lifers that are no longer going to be there. I'm sure they'll always have love for Villanova unconditionally, but this is the nature of the business. But as far as keeping Ashley Howard, a recruiter in this area, and like don't forget, a guy that got Colin Gillespie, like got Mikal Bridges, like a guy that locally has been really instrumental in getting some of the best players they've had there in recent memory. And like you said, got Jameer Brickus to go there. I mean, there's been reports that like this has been the guy that's been working the phones and still recruiting people even during the coaching change before it was announced. Because I feel like it's the Porter reporter or somebody. You're like, oh, this transfer has heard from X, Y, and Z, and it's like, well, who on Villanova is contacting these people?
It either be him or Baker Dunleavy.
They don't have a coach.
Yeah.
So nice to see him stick along, and not to say that he wouldn't be a good head coach, but for one reason or another, LaSalle didn't work out. But the bottom line is, like, I think this guy is best as an associate or an assistant who like does the recruiting, forms relationships with these guys. Of course, does on the court stuff. Of course, does scout and prep and X and O's. But like this guy's calling card is his relationships, recruiting, and stuff like that. And especially in this area, a very strategic hire by Kevin Willard that I think will certainly work out on his staff. Even with there's new people that Ashley Howard has never worked with before. Like I'm sure he has a relationship with Kevin Willard being in the Big East so long that transition will be seamless. But I can tell you one thing: Ashley Howard will be a significant asset to anybody who would have walked into this job. Would have made their job easier keeping Ashley Howard on. Somebody that knows Villanova, knows the area. He'll make the transition a lot smoother for Kevin Willard for sure.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. All right, Cope, enough with coaching news. Let's go over some transfer portal things. Obviously, we've had a lot to go over. We're not going to go over everything that's already happened, but we will highlight some new stuff, starting with LaSalle. Charles Ireland is on his way out from LaSalle. And in are a few people, Cope. Dimitri Gardner from Division II Augusta University, Jaden Marshall from Niagara, Justin Archer from Georgia State, and before that played under Darius Nichols at Radford, and Jerome Brewer Jr. from McNeese. Temple, the only new news here is Quante Berry committing to Memphis. So we will be seeing Quante Berry once again, which Penny Hardaway recruits very well. They always do well. Unfortunately, tournament time not usually his friend.
You know what else he does well is he takes the best players from in conference pretty well.
And yes, and he's not Quante Berry's not the first Temple player obviously to go over there. Zach Hicks, not Zach Hicks. What's his face?
Nick Jourdain.
Yes, Nick Jourdain. That team blends together sometimes, but yes, Nick Jourdain was there too. So yes, Quante Berry also going to Memphis. For Villanova, Josiah Mosley and Chris Parker entered the transfer portal this week. But Villanova also did bring in some people. Malachi Palmer, following Kevin Willard from Maryland. Chris Jeffrey, who was a Maryland commit following Kevin Willard over to Villanova. He was a top 100 guy as well. For St. Joe's, Sean Simmons II entered the transfer portal. And I believe we went over Al Amadou last time, so we're not going to do that again. And for Penn, nothing new really. Michelangelo Alberti in the transfer portal. AJ Levine removed his name. Sam Brown still hasn't made a decision yet. Although, Cope, you did say that he was at the press conference for Fran McCaffrey.
Yeah, both Sam Brown. Actually, Michelangelo Alberti was there too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen with that. So stay tuned, Penn fans, Big Five fans. I'm not entirely sure. And then we went over the Drexel trio last episode, who all committed to high major D1 schools. So, Cope, I think the biggest news of this has to do definitely with Villanova and LaSalle. We can start with LaSalle. One guy out, four new guys in, one of them which played under Darius Nichols at Radford before transferring to Georgia State, and Justin Archer. A lot of guys that I don't think Big Five fans, certainly myself, aren't quite familiar with. Not this saying that you're the complete expert on them, but I do think you have a little bit more knowledge in this situation than probably me and even the rest of us. So, Cope, what do you know about these four, and who of them should we be most excited about?
Yeah, I think Jerome Brewer Jr. is the guy you got to be most excited about because, sure, he redshirted at McNeese last year. The previous 2 seasons he played for now East Texas A&M. They were Texas A&M Commerce when he was there, and actually one of the teams he was on 2 years ago came into Hagan Arena and beat St. Joe's.
Remember that?
But he's from Camden, New Jersey. He's a local guy. And there was a really good article by Del Greco Wilson that he had put out on Jerome Brewer committing, saying how he wants to give back. He wants to work with LaSalle to have kids from Camden be able to attend LaSalle games at a cheaper cost. So that, I think, has to get you excited. But how about just a local guy, man? A local guy, he put up some numbers scoring the ball at East Texas A&M. So I think a guy like that, nice size as well as a bigger forward, that has to get you excited that this staff brought a local guy back who's had success, which he's got 2 years of eligibility as well, but had success at the low D1 level because, let's face it, like Commerce, with all due respect, in the Southland is one of the most under-resourced schools, not only in that league, but in the country. So had success at that level. We'll see if he can do it closer to home here, but he did not put anything on film last year, unfortunately, redshirting at McNeese. But bringing a local guy home is awesome. And then Dimitri Gardner is a interesting one. This is one of the best scorers in Division II last year at Augusta, which, by the way, Kyle, if you threw a baseball from Augusta University's campus, you could probably hit where the epicenter of the sports world is going to be for the next week or so. So him being a really good scorer in D2, I mean, he had mid and low major interest. I think he had a couple high major schools reach out to him according to the Porter Report as well. So to bring in a guy like that where he had a bunch of offers and he chose LaSalle and he chose Darius Nichols, to get a score like that you hope could transfer up is big time. And then Justin Archer was at Georgia State last year, did not play in many games, but he was a Radford guy as well. And I think if you want to establish what you're doing faster, bring in guys that know what you're doing here. So Justin Archer becomes the third guy, having already previously played under Darius Nichols, to be there. So all that is all well and good. They're starting to fill a roster out together as it starts to take shape. But look, if you want to establish a culture, again, who's familiar with you? Maybe some guys that have played for you and got a couple years under their belt. So Truth Harris, Josiah Harris, Justin Archer, some Radford guys getting into the fold here. Then I do want to touch on Villanova because these guys are going to be the more like prominent national names here. So Chris Jeffrey comes over, followed Kevin Willard, will be at Villanova next year. This guy, he played at Mount Zion Prep, which Malachi Palmer also played at. where I'll use my baseball analogy, Kyle. If you look at where Mount Zion Prep is and where College Park, Maryland is on a map, if you threw a baseball from Maryland's campus, you'd probably hit Mount Zion Prep. They're that close to each
Man,
other.
you're really done with college basketball season already. You're
Uh, trying to
right on
be
the diamond.
Yeah, trying to be as dialed in as possible here. But would hope that you could grab these guys being there right next to your campus, but they both are going to follow Kevin Willard over to Villanova. Malachi Palmer played seldom this year, honestly, as did basically everyone that wasn't the top, the Crab Five, sans maybe the sixth man on this team, because that's just who was playing the bulk of the minutes and scored the bulk of the points. But Malachi Palmer comes over with 3 years of eligibility remaining. You bring in Chris Jeffrey, who he's going to have 4, knock on wood, if he's going to follow you, hopefully stays for a couple of years. So, we didn't see too much from Malachi Palmer this year, just given the nature of the team. And then Chris Jeffrey still, yet to be on a basketball court in at the D1 level. But these are two guys that if we want, Kevin Willard said a bunch of times, like if we want a culture, I want to keep the Villanova culture. And although that's hard to do with the Villanova way in this climate, he has two guys that still have a lot of years of eligibility and room to grow that could potentially help him do that. So there will be more because Villanova's got a lot of spots. LaSalle still has a lot of spots. Drexel still has spots to fill. St. Joe's, I think we get news about another guy or two coming in here. But Kyle, the transfer portal moves on.
Sure
We had six new guys come in. We're nowhere near done.
No, like actually not even close. It's so funny. And every year it keeps on growing and growing and growing. It's unbelievable what the transfer portal's become. But welcome to the world of college sports. I'm sure football is even more crazy considering the roster sizes. So we're here, and yeah, cool. By the way, before we move on to our last little thing here, you mentioned Augusta, you mentioned the Masters. Do you have a Masters pick for the people? I know you're not a huge golf guy, but I figured I'd ask.
I'm trying to think if I can even name like 7 golfers. Like I think I could. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, you have to be.
Morikawa, John Rahm, Rory, Justin Thomas. Is Thigala? What's his name?
Heath?
Yeah,
Thigala. Yep.
What is that? 4?
It's 5.
5.
I missed who your first one was, but I heard you name one. I think so. This is 5.
Does Oosthuizen still golf?
Oh, I don't know, to be honest with you. I know you're talking. You're not pronouncing it right, but
okay. I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna act like I know
Tiger got hurt, right? He's not
Tiger. He's still. I mean, he's active, but he got hurt. I'll give you that. One more. Bring us home.
Does Ricky Fowler still play golf?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
I don't know if he's in the Masters. I actually haven't looked, but he does still play golf. So no pick. So no pick then. Who are the people? Actually, by the time this airs, the tournament will probably kick off already. But if anyone wants to,
does it start tomorrow?
It starts on Thursday. Yes, Thursday.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what time. I think 9. Right about the time this releases, but people can maybe track it otherwise.
Based on absolutely no knowledge of nothing, I'm going to go with Justin Thomas.
Okay. Listen, he's a contender.
Don't do with that what you will.
Please.
You asked me for a name and I gave you one.
Listen, as a friend of his, don't listen to anything he has to say about picking anything unless it's college basketball. And even then, sometimes.
I don't even really bet on anything.
I know. It doesn't always go well for you. Let's just listen. It is what it is. For me, I'm going to go. See, here's the thing. Rory needs a Masters to complete the career Grand Slam. Okay. And win all 4 majors. He is playing the best golf that he's played in some time. He's probably playing the best golf in the world right now. Scotty Scheffler is the best golfer in the world, but he hurt himself. He was making homemade ravioli, cut himself on a wine glass, I think, or something sharp. So he got hurt. He's back though. Getting up to speed still, I think, a little bit. So I'm not 100% sure he's going to win this one. He'll win something at some point. He won 7 tournaments last year. If I had to pick, I would say Rory, but I think also Colin Morikawa is going to do some damage here at Augusta. Problem is, he always does well, and then he gets to Sunday, sometimes it doesn't go well for him. So maybe he'll change that this time at Augusta. Who knows? But I think my official pick will be Rory. Although I'm sure people say that every year, and he does fortunately let us down at Augusta every year. I'm hoping this year's different because Rory's awesome. He hasn't won a major in like 12, 13 years. I think it's his time. We'll see. Anyway, back to the final things of this pod. Cope, I'll give you a little reprieve from talking for the moment so you can, catch your breath here and finish this out. We're going to go over some coaching news relevant to the Big Five. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but just some hires that have happened in the last few weeks here while we've been talking about some other stuff. So Fordham hired UC Riverside's Mike. Okay, I'm going to tap you in early. How do you say this last name?
Mike Magpio.
Magpio, thank you. Mike Magpio is next head coach. I'd rather defer to you to get it right than try to get it wrong. 5 seasons at UC Riverside. He had an 89-63 record. UC Riverside joined the Big West in 2002. Cope. They've only had 6 winning seasons. He was responsible for 4 of them, and the only 2 20-win seasons in that span. So yeah, good hire on their part. Obviously relevant to the A10 and to the 2 teams in the Big Five that are in the A10. Fordham was not good this past year, so maybe they can get back to some competitive excellence here. Yeah. VCU, obviously very much intertwined with the Big Five here, with Phil Martelli Jr. being head coach. And guess who his name is? Associate head coach, his brother, Jimmy, who served as the assistant coach at Penn State under Mike Rhodes the past 2 seasons. He was the director of ops at VCU under Rhodes from 2017 to 23 before he took the job at Penn State. So he's back home and he's coaching with his brother. That's pretty freaking cool. And I know Phil Sr. is supposed to be involved somehow in the staff as well. So pretty cool. And not only that, Cope, Ryan Daly, who was on Phil Martelli Jr.'s staff at Bryant, will follow him to serve as assistant coach at VCU. Previously, he was also at Albany under Dwayne Killings 2 seasons prior to last season as well. And to wrap it up with the A10 connections with VCU, Nick Schmidt, the son of Mark Schmidt, will be the director of video and scouting, was also under Phil Martelli Jr. last year at Bryant as an assistant coach. And
I'm going to take this one because
you take this one because I saw you type in just now, and
there's a pronunciation that I don't want you to mess up, so I'm going to take this one.
I trust you.
So maybe not a D1 Big Five coaching hire here, but there is a Philadelphia connection that I'd like to go over. So Campbell, Kyle, they hired Florida assistant John Anderzek, and he hired Swarthmore head coach Landry Komolsky to be on his staff. Landry at Swarthmore, who really has like Ivy League academic rigors to get in, very low acceptance rate, very, very good Division III school. Really, really good Division III school, not just in this area, but really across the country. And he had been there for quite some time. He was actually at Davidson under Bob McKillop as well. So he's going to go back down to the Carolinas. He's going to be working at Campbell in the CAA and got a D1 call up. I thought that was a nice thing to intertwine there. Local connection, maybe not Big Five, maybe not D1, but if you know hoops in this area, Swarthmore was damn good under Landry Komolsky. He'll be going back to the D1 ranks. Thought that was worth a mention. I
agree. And yeah, they did definitely have to wait a little bit for that. Cope, Florida. They did cut down the nets the other night. So, yeah. And listen, that is all we have for this episode. I know it was a lot to throw at you guys, but thank you so much for tuning in and listening to us talk about everything that's to do with the Big Five, with some Masters picks thrown in there, some Final Four talk, of course, at the top. Cope, any final thoughts before we sign off here?
Going to have more stuff coming, not only with the pod, but for Mid-Major Madness, I'm hoping to do some transfer portal spotlights. I've been in contact with Josiah Harris, who just committed to LaSalle. Being an old Radford guy, going to try to do a story on him and continue to churn those out, not only as the offseason goes on, but as these guys commit to Big Five schools, which, of course, sans Villanova, because Mid-Major Madness does not cover the Big East. They strictly cover the mid-majors. So Drexel, St. Joe's, Penn, LaSalle, St. Joe's, I'll be doing stories and all those transfers, but hopefully we'll have a Josiah Harris feature up on midmajormadness.com pretty soon.
Oh, I think you said St. Joe's twice, but you meant Temple. We'll give it to you anyway.
Oh, whoops. A lot of talking, man.
A lot of talking. Hey, it's okay. But yes, everybody make sure you look out for that from Mid-Major Madness. And, of course, we'll have more stuff for you, too. But in the meantime, thank you all for tuning in to this episode. To find more of our episodes, if you're seeing us, you're watching us on YouTube. So go to our YouTube channel, like, subscribe if you'd like. If you're listening to us just in your ears, of course, that means you're listening on our audio-only versions on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you're seeing us on YouTube, of course, make sure you go check those out. And for everybody, make sure you go check out our social media channels, Instagram, Twitter, at Big5Pod, and see any updates on transfer portal, coaching news. It's a crazy time of year, so definitely want to keep updated on everything happening there. And that's all we got for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.